Okay, we're ready to go. So, welcome everybody. We're going to start with presentations as we're short, one member for quorum. So, we'll jump right into our first presentation, Natural Heritage System Study. Presentation. Welcome Nancy Posado, our Manager of Planning. And Nancy's going to present this report. Go ahead, Nancy.
Thank you, Mayor. Through you to members of the Environment Committee, I appreciate the opportunity to give my presentations today. So these presentations were previously given at we had a series of meetings for community feedback meetings on the Elgin Natural Heritage System Study and source water protection. So I'll just go through these presentations. They're a little lengthy, but hopefully I can keep your attention for the whole time. And I welcome any feedback or questions. Would like to say that it does say in the presentation that the last day for feedback is November 26th. But certainly if you as members of the Environment Committee or individual members want to provide feedback, please do. There's multiple ways to do that, either through email, call, write, or on our Engage Elgin website. We really hope that you'll be able to provide some good feedback on these key pieces for the official plan review. So we'll start with the agenda. Sorry. Yes, sorry. We'll go back to the agenda really quick. We'll start with an overview of the natural heritage systems, look at the background and current official plan. We'll take a look at the project itself and provide an overview. We'll look at the vegetation communities in the study, the key findings and considerations, the impact of the natural heritage system study, some scenarios and examples of how this may impact, and finally, how you can provide your input. What is the natural heritage system? It's a network of interconnected natural features and areas such as woodlands, valleylands, rivers, and wetlands. These systems are identified to help conserve biological diversity, maintain ecological functions, and sustain ecosystem services that we depend on, like flood control and clean water. Protecting these systems helps to create a more resilient landscape that is able to adapt to stresses and changes. It helps to maintain the health of the landscape and ecological communities, ensures sustainability, and supports the life cycle of living things in their environment. Natural heritage systems planning, then, is about linking natural features and maintaining, restoring, and where possible, enhancing these landscapes. It can also help facilitate restoration and enhancement of important natural areas, such as planting trees along a watercourse to reduce erosion. The province requires, through legislation and policy, such as the Provincial Policy Statement, to identify and protect natural heritage systems, and these protections are included within the county's official plan. Our official plan balances the need for land development, resource use and protection of environmental features and ecosystems. The Elgin Natural Heritage System Study is a science-based technical document that will help to further define natural heritage features and linkages based on an updated landscape analysis. Slide. To give some further context, and as I mentioned previously, the province requires the municipalities to identify natural heritage systems and preserve their diversity and connectivity. This translates into local policies to help guide development, support stewardship initiatives, foster climate change, foster climate change responses, develop environmental studies, and support conservation efforts. Elgin's current official plan does contain environmental policies that identify and protect natural heritage systems and features. At the time of the county's first official plan in 2013, it was noted that a natural heritage study would be undertaken at the time of the next official plan review, which is now currently underway. Next slide. As mentioned on the previous slide, we are reviewing the natural heritage study at this time as part of our 5-year review of the official plan. Our current official plan does contain policies to identify and protect natural heritage features, and these features are shown on Appendix 1 of the plan, and were derived from data and aerial mapping from 2010. The Elgin Natural Heritage System Study includes updated aerial mapping from 2015. The county will use the study and public feedback we receive to update the official plan policies to ensure we balance development with ecosystem protection. Based on this infographic, it illustrates some of the issues and challenges when natural heritage features are not protected and are lost. Overall, a loss of habitat leads to a decline in species and an isolation of the remainder of that habitat. The preservation of features and connections help to support biodiversity, resiliency, and improve the ecological health of areas. Next slide. So the overall goal of the Natural Heritage System Study is to identify key natural heritage features, linkages, and any changes since 2010. The goals are to recognize linkages and wildlife corridors, to maintain and/or improve local and regional biodiversity, to provide a scientific basis for land and water stewardship, to inform resource management decision-making to support sustainable economic opportunities, and to support sustainable recreational uses. Slide. There are some important facts that need to be clarified, though, up front. Firstly, the study does not consider shoreline management. This was done under a separate study and was not included as part of this review. Secondly, there was no update to the watercourse layer. However, our previous information did include water bodies in major watercourses, so they continue to be shown. Also, any future development would need to consider fish habitat, which is a federal consideration. The county also has a woodlands conservation bylaw, which was developed in 2006 and is meant to prevent the loss of forest cover and minimize the destruction of trees. There is no change proposed to the bylaw at this time. The provincial policy statement identifies certain features that are considered significant, like woodlands and wetlands, but the study also includes ecologically important features such as thickets and meadows. And lastly, this is not the first time ecological features have been mapped in the county. Previous studies include the 1993 Significant Natural Areas of Elgin County, the 2005 Elgin Landscape Strategy, and the 2012 Elgin Greenway Conservation Plan. The Ministry of Natural Resources has also provided information to assist in informing our mapping. Slide. When developing the Elgin Natural Heritage System study, it included involvement from many stakeholders, including the conservation authorities, the partner ministries, and each of the local municipalities. The project steering committee was led by the members of the Rural Initiatives and Planning Advisory Committee, which are listed here, but I believe were slightly different potentially when the project started. Next slide. The study was completed in 2019 by the Upper Thames River Conservation Authority and relied on the previous information within the 2013 official plan. The most recent updates include information from the conservation authorities and the ministry, 2015 aerial photography, high-quality imagery, and geographic information systems review, as well as other agencies and municipalities that have provided additional information on public land ownership. But there are some limitations. For instance, the 2015 aerial photos were used, which of course limits the information, but is also needed to establish a baseline at a point in time. The watercourse layer, of course, was not up to date, so this was also not updated. And recommendations on system linkages are going to change based on whether it's agricultural versus an urban area. For instance, it's easier for wildlife to use agricultural fields to access features than an urban area. In terms of the timeline, the study was initiated in 2018 and Upper Thames River Conservation Authority was hired to complete the study. Engagement in meetings with key committees was initiated and the ecological criteria and mapping was agreed to. A draft report was presented to the advisory groups in 2019 and further revisions and drafts followed. In 2020, County Council reviewed the draft and identified concerns with the study, methodology, and the implications to landowners. Council direction was to wait until the province reviewed the provincial policy statement to see if any changes would be made to natural heritage policies. However, in May 2020, the revised PPS did not make any further changes to natural heritage, and Council directed staff to seek public input on this study. Next slide. As mentioned previously, Appendix 1 of the county's official plan shows previously identified woodlands, provincially significant wetlands, and areas of natural and scientific interest. Also included in the current official plan are policies related to development within or near these features, and policies related to environmental impact studies, which are required if development is proposed on or near these features. Slide. This is an update to the maps provided in the report, and it shows all of the features mapped through the 2019 study with various ecological land classification categories. Next slide. So what do these maps tell us? Well, we see an expansion of natural heritage features in some areas and a small reduction in other areas. We see that all municipalities overall do show an increase in natural heritage. We also see that new natural heritage layers have been added to help further refine features and connections. So how do I see if my property is impacted? Well, there are maps by the municipality which are available if anyone is interested. They are available upon request, and they're also available from our Elgin County website at engageelgin.ca/official plan review. There's also an interactive tool on our Engage Elgin website where you can review your property or properties with respect to the Natural Heritage System study overlays. And of course, staff are always available to discuss any of your concerns or comments that you have. Slide. So the current 2013 official plan contains existing policies on several environmental categories, such as significant woodlands, significant habitat of endangered and threatened species, significant wetlands, areas of natural and scientific interest, wildlife habitat, valley lands, and fish habitat. Appendix 1 in the 2013 official plan shows specifically provincially significant wetlands, provincially significant areas of natural and scientific interest, and woodlands. Other features, such as significant habitat of endangered and threatened species, wildlife habitat, and valley lands, are not mapped. Typically, these other features are captured through other significant features, such as wetlands and woodlands, or would be noted through studies such as an environmental impact study. So what is proposed with the 2019 Elgin Natural Heritage Study? The study looks at a number of new vegetation communities that we will look at through the following slides, and further refine some of those features that we will see on Appendix 1 with more accurate information. So the study, there are 17 types of vegetation communities that were used for the study, and each of these communities were assigned to a vegetation group. Woodlands, wetlands, thickets, meadows, water features, and connected vegetation features. The woodland vegetation group is an existing layer from the 2013 official plan. The study further breaks this down into 8 vegetation communities as detailed here. Next slide. Some of the wetland vegetation group is within the official plan, and the draft study breaks this down into 7 communities which are treed or untreed. Next slide. The thicket vegetation group is a new group and was not previously identified or delineated in our official plan. It's been broken down into 4 vegetation communities as seen here. Slide. The meadow vegetation group is a new class and was not previously identified in the official plan. It is made up of 2 vegetation communities as identified here. Water features were previously identified and are shown in the county's official plan, and it is made up of 2 vegetation communities, permanent water bodies or major water courses. Slide. And finally, the connected vegetation feature is also a new class not previously defined in the county's OP. It entails trees and or shrubs that connect 2 or more vegetation communities, such as buffers, hedgerows, shelter belts, or natural fence rows. So in terms of policy options, the county could choose not to update the existing policies in the official plan, or the policies could be enhanced and further refined to include more than what is required in the provincial policy statement. The draft study does give us better information on features and connections, and with this better data, we can avoid a one-size-fits-all approach to natural heritage features. Future policy development will take into consideration new features and new definitions and setbacks and trigger distances for further studies. So some of the key findings from the 2019 study: overall, 24.12% of Elgin County is in ecologically important vegetation cover. Of that, 20.77% is in forests and woodlands. 3.12% is in other vegetation cover, such as thickets, meadows, and connected vegetation, with 2.64% being wetland. A few key considerations. There will likely need to be some refinements just based on changes over the last few years. The work that was done for this study is complex and very resource intensive, so it's not easy to go back and reevaluate or change parameters at this point. Future implementation and enforcement may be challenging if the policies are not in place to support it. We will need to review the recommendations versus what is required by the province. We don't yet know what those policy pieces in our OP are going to look like, and that's what's going to be part of that next step. And finally, any policies that are recommended or developed for the county official plan will require additional public consultation. So how do the changes impact you? As mentioned, the changes to the overall natural heritage layers are less than 3% additional coverage that was added. But depending on the type of feature and its proximity to possible development, this may impact you as a landowner. For instance, the requirement for an environmental impact study will continue, and that means that any development proposed within or near a feature requires further study at the landowner's expense. Next slide. So how might this impact you as a landowner? There are two scenarios to consider. The first is you're located in the agricultural area and you have a farm. It's important to note that in our official plan, there is a policy that nothing shall limit the ability of farmers to carry out normal farm practices in accordance with the Farming and Food Protection Act. So farm improvements continue to be permitted. But if you're looking to initiate a Planning Act application, like applying for a severance, then this may trigger the need for further review, such as an environmental impact study at your expense. It is important to note, though, that the county's Woodlands Conservation Bylaw also applies, so the destruction or removal of trees, for instance, is still not permitted. But this is no different of a process than as what currently exists in the county's official plan. Slide. The second scenario is if you are a landowner within a settlement area. Here again, development may trigger further study at the owner's expense. For instance, if you were proposing a severance of a second lot and there was a woodlot on a portion of it, the requirement would be for an environmental impact study, which would look at the feature and determine significance, setbacks or buffers, or other information to ensure the features and the functions are not impacted. But as the previous example, other bylaws still apply and there is still no change or additional requirements from the current official plan. Next slide. So this final slide obviously lets you know that there is opportunities to provide additional comments if you would like to do so after this meeting, or we certainly have time today if anyone would like to ask any questions or provide any comments this way. Thank you.
Any questions for Nancy before she continues on with the second portion of her presentation? Go ahead, Sarah.
I have a couple of questions. Like we said that there was a 2.8% increase in the overall.
Sorry, Rob. I think I had the floor.
Yeah.
Sorry. Hi, Sarah.
Hi, Rob. So I had a question about the updated water courses layer. Is there any plans, like what are the plans for that? Is there any funding available to update that water course layer?
Through you, Mr. Chair, not at this point. There was no funding basically available at this point to update that layer. I think it's definitely something that will need to be done, but we have to ensure that the accurate information can be provided. I think a lot of the conservation authorities as well are currently going through some of their processes in terms of updating their, their mapping and their floodplain mapping, that sort of thing. So I think it'll be beneficial to work with the conservation authorities over the next few years to obtain some updates through that avenue as well. And as well, we'll need to rely on the Ministry of Natural Resources as they are a repository of a lot of information, and I'm hopeful that they'll have updated information as well as we progress through the years.
So so most of that would be based on the conservation authorities and their floodplain mapping? Is that where you would get the data?
At this point, I'm hopeful that that's where we would be able to get the easiest data that we can obtain, yes. Otherwise, it would require likely hiring someone in order to do an update to that layer specifically, which isn't anticipated at this point from a budgetary perspective.
And would the new floodplain mapping be kind of included in the if that was updated, would the whole I'm assuming, just based on what's going on, that floodplain mapping is probably going to be expanding. And so that would be the floodplain mapping would then also be included?
So, through Mr. Chair, the floodplain mapping is included at the local municipal level. So, most of the municipalities would then, through their official plans, would adopt the new floodplain mapping as well. The county currently doesn't have floodplain on any of its mapping, but it's captured at the local municipal level. So, that will be the next step, basically, is once all of those floodplain mapping is updated, ensuring that the local municipalities incorporate that into their official plans as well.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Rob.
Is the increase of 2.8%, is there any idea of how many acres that actually is, or hectares?
I do, I just don't have the slide with me. I can follow up though and find that slide and let you know how much that entails. It is, I believe it's the difference between several hundred hectares, maybe even several thousand, because I recall that it's around 19,000 and then 21,000, something like that, or 21 to 23,000. So I can confirm that with you.
That's
Nancy,
Go ahead. I didn't. Was that Ken?
yeah,
Go ahead.
sorry for joining the meeting late.
No problem.
Just going back to the under the category of important facts, why is there not any more mention of the shoreline management plan
Through you,
and how
Mr.
the
Chair.
county's going to deal with that? I think that's a pretty important natural feature of the county. And I look, Norfolk has mentioned in their plan. Haldeman has mentioned in their plan, and so does Essex. It doesn't have to be with a lot of detail, but I think there should be some mention of the shoreline management end of things.
I will make a note of that. It's not the first time that I've heard this comment. I can tell you that it was a separate report. So certainly the Elgin Natural Heritage System study didn't look at the shoreline management plan. So because it's a separate report, it would need to be considered separately through any future consideration to add it to the official plan. But it is a comment that has been made that there needs to be some policy with respect to it in the official plan.
Okay,
Comment?
and there was no mention of under the project guidance of Catfish Creek. They weren't included on the project study team.
Through you, Mr. Chair. No, they were. If it wasn't in the slide, I apologize. They were part of that study team. All conservation authorities were represented.
Okay, so and just a information thing. You can get more information through MPAC on your managed forest tax incentive program or the conservation land availability. So if a landowner wants to know what impacts, whether they have conservation lands, that sort of thing, all they have to do is go to MPAC, punch in their roll number, and it'll come up with information on their properties.
Good point. Thank you very much for that.
Okay. Any other questions for Nancy before she continues on? So I guess if you're ready to go with the source water protection community feedback, go ahead, Nancy.
Thank you, Mayor. So the second part of the presentation was with respect to source water protection. We also had a community feedback meeting, or rather it was a portion of our community feedback meeting. And I'll go through this presentation now. So the agenda very briefly is we look at the background, the objectives, impacted areas, some of the next steps, and any questions and comments that anyone had as well. Next slide. As many of you may remember, a municipal well in Walkerton became contaminated in May of 2000. As a result of this, the province took strong action to ensure drinking water would be protected for all. The public inquiry into the Walkerton tragedy resulted in 121 recommendations that became the building blocks for drinking water protection in Ontario, and new legislation such as the Safe Drinking Water Act and the Clean Water Act were passed. 20 years later, and we are still reminded that protecting our drinking water is a vital and shared responsibility, and it all starts at the water source. Each of Ontario's source protection regions and source protection areas host a website on drinking water source protection. The County of Elgin is located within the Lake Erie Source Protection Region and the Thames, Sydenham and Region Drinking Water Source Protection Region. And for further information, you can go to sourcewater.ca. The county has 4 watersheds and source protection areas, and they include Catfish Creek, Thames, Sydenham and Region, Kettle Creek, and Long Point Region. The source protection planning process and the administration of the plans itself is locally driven, science-based, and involves public engagement. There are two committees that oversee the development of the plans and reports on implementation. These committees are comprised of many representatives who have an interest in drinking water issues, such as local municipalities, residents, farmers, and local business owners. The day-to-day operation, though, is managed by a program manager and a program assistant. Next slide. So source water protection plans contain policies that recommend or require actions to address any drinking water threats. These reports have also mapped vulnerable areas around municipal wells and intake areas, groundwater intakes, and groundwater recharge areas, and identified potential threats to those areas. Source water is defined as untreated water from streams, lakes, rivers, and underground aquifers that people use to supply private wells and public drinking water systems. Therefore, source water protection is protecting these water sources from contamination and overuse. Next slide. There are 2 pieces of legislation developed to protect drinking water. The Clean Water Act helps communities protect their drinking water through prevention by developing source protection plans. And the Safe Drinking Water Act helps protect drinking water through the regulation of drinking water systems and drinking water testing. These acts recognize that residents are entitled to expect safe drinking water and to provide measures to protect it. Overall objectives for safe drinking water include a multifaceted approach that includes source protection, as well as emergency response measures, distribution of water, analysis, testing, and treatment. So the county's objectives with respect to source protection planning are to prepare official plan and zoning bylaw amendments to the county and local municipal official plans that have a municipal drinking water system that is regulated by a source protection plan, and to also prepare more general official plan amendments for the other local municipalities that do not have a municipal drinking water system. Slide. Human health depends on clean water, and threats to drinking water and contamination still occur even today. Hazardous chemicals cannot always be removed through water treatment, and remediating groundwater after contamination is much more costly than protecting at the source. Preventing contamination reduces the cost to treat water, and poor water quality can impact many areas, including businesses and residents. The objectives of source protection plans are to protect future and existing drinking water sources and to ensure a drinking water threat is minimized or removed. Slide. This is a small infographic about how it works. Most wells get their water from underground aquifers, which are layers of rock and soil with water flowing through small pores. Water in aquifers generally moves slowly, but the water that feeds into these aquifers comes from many places. Recharge areas is a place where water is able to seep into the ground and refill an aquifer, but some aquifers may be more vulnerable to surface water contamination because of the flow of the water. Surface water intakes are an intake pipe that channels water into a treatment facility or system from a river or intake lake, and a wellhead is a water well's opening. The objectives of the source protection planning and ultimately the policies to be included in the county and local official plans are to ensure land use planning contributes to protection, to encourage efficient and sustainable use of water resources, to protect water resources from contamination and degradation, and to encourage agricultural practices that protect water resources. Next slide. As can be seen on this map and on subsequent mapping, the well is shown and the immediate area around the wellhead is considered to be an area of high vulnerability, which means there is a high level of risk of contamination in this area. The rest of the area is also mapped depending on the flow of water and recharge, and as you move away from the wellhead, the level of risk generally goes down. There are 21 land use activities that have been identified as potential threats to drinking water. I'm not going to go through them all, but I'm just going to pick out a few. The application of agricultural source material to land, and source material is defined as manure, bedding, or wash water, for instance. The application of non-agricultural source material to land, the handling and storage of non-agricultural source material. Next slide. The application of commercial fertilizer to land, the application of road salt and the storage of road salt and the storage of snow. Next slide. The management of runoff that contains chemicals used in de-icing of an aircraft, any activity that reduces the recharge of an aquifer, and the use of land as livestock grazing or pasturing land, an outdoor confinement area, or a farm animal yard. But overall, these potential risks have the most to do with possible contamination from a hazardous substance. Next slide. So there are 3 areas in Elgin County that are directly impacted. This first one is located in Belmont and is identified as a wellhead protection area for 2 wells. The Belmont Community Park and Central Elgin Fire Station are located within the highest vulnerability area of the wellhead, Zone A. Commercial and residential uses are located in slightly reduced vulnerability area, known as Zone B, and Zone C, which extends into the township of Malahide and Thames Center, is primarily agricultural uses. The proposed policy is lengthy, but copies of the policies are also available on our website if you'd like to take a look at them. The proposed policy defines the purpose, location, background, goals. It also identifies the vulnerable areas and identifies the land use activity which may pose a drinking water threat, and the requirements for studies if proposed development does include a threat. Next slide. In Bayham, there is the Richmond Wellhead Protection Area, which is comprised of 2 wells. All 3 of the protection zones are located in the agricultural area, and a portion of the zone extends into Malahide. Policies proposed for this area also look at limits to septic systems and the involvement of a risk management official if needed. Slide. And the final area is related to the Elgin Area Primary Water Supply System. The intake for the water supply is located 1.2 kilometers offshore. The primary vulnerability area is 1 kilometer around the intake and does not reach the shoreline. The Zone 2 then has a low vulnerability, and the handling of large quantities of fertilizer or fuel is generally prohibited in these areas. There are certain areas and policies that are not recommended to be included in the official plan. Source protection plans include discretionary policies related to education, incentives, and monitoring, but they have no legal effect and are not required to be implemented through official plans. There are also certain areas that are considered moderate or low threats, such as the West Elgin Primary Water Supply System or significant groundwater recharge areas. These areas are not required to have policies in the official plan, and so no recommendations to include these discretionary policies were made. Next slide. For next steps, we also ask you to review the technical information in the proposed policy and provide your feedback if you can. These amendments will be implemented either as part of the county's official plan review process or as standalone amendments in the future. As I mentioned previously, the information is available from engageelgin.ca/official plan review. We would be hopeful that you can provide some additional comments on the proposed policies or any further information or questions that you have. You can also reach out to us as well. Something to think about is, how does this impact me and my lands? And what uses or activities could impact our water resources? Generally, there'll be additional opportunities for public engagement, so we hope that you'll be involved as the process progresses. Does anyone have any questions?
Any questions for Nancy?
Grant, it's Sally.
Go ahead, Sally.
Nancy, what was the response? I attended your one public meeting where you presented both of these. Have you had a lot of response from the public concerning these? I know source water protection, Kim and I sat on that for many, many years, so we're very familiar with all that. But I'm just curious as to how many landowners have made comments or responded.
Through you, Mr. Chair, we've had generally about 4 to 5 responses overall, which includes Elgin Natural Heritage System Study. In fact, predominantly most of the comments have come with respect to the Elgin Natural Heritage System Study. We haven't had any specific comments on the source water protection. I think in part because source water protection has actually been around for quite a while, and the policies, in fact, were drafted in, as I mentioned, I believe 2017 or 2018, just have not yet been included in the official plan. So at this point, we haven't received very much by way of feedback.
Right, and there aren't that many landowners that are affected specifically by the source water protection. So, okay, I was just curious to see what the response has been to your public meetings.
Generally, we've had a few comments related to the application of the Natural Heritage System Study. A few people have indicated that they think it would be better only if it was applied to publicly owned lands rather than all lands within the county, which just so you're aware, the provincial policy statement doesn't say that. In fact, that's how it is applied. It should be a natural heritage system study is reviewed for all lands, not just publicly owned lands. And that's predominantly the comments that we've received so far.
Okay, and I believe very strongly that it has to be all lands. I mean, if it was just publicly owned lands, we wouldn't have any connectivity or such. And as you've already said, our woodlands bylaw prohibits the clearing of woods, but certainly drainage of wetlands and all that are very important.
Absolutely. I agree with you.
Anything further for Nancy? Seeing nothing further, thank you very much, Nancy, for presenting this this morning for us. Appreciate it.
Thank you, everyone. And if you do have any comments or questions, please reach out to us. Our information is available here as well on our Gauge Elgin website.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we'll go back up. We have a quorum now, so approval of agenda. I was wondering, after Nancy's presentations, would it be possible for an addendum to add in under new business a discussion of this possible communication to council and the manager of planning regarding what we think might be missing, or since I guess time's of the essence, if we leave it for another meeting that's long past the deadline for comments, we're already a week past the deadline, but they're willing to still accept some comments. So would that be acceptable, Catherine?
Absolutely. If we want, after we can add that item, approve the agenda and the minutes, and then maybe we can do that item first before the pollinator presentation, so that Nancy can be involved in hearing the feedback.
Sure, that would work. So I need a motion to approve the agenda with the addendum item in new business. Sarah, seconder, please.
Sally,
Ray, I got Ray first.
that's fine.
All right, I'll call the vote.
Please.
Councillor Martin,
Yes.
Kim Smale,
Yes.
Sarah Emmons, Ray Price,
Yes.
Rob Brom,
Yes.
Councillor Jones.
Yes,
6-0, the motion is carried.
thank you. So I guess before we go into the pollinator garden, we'll just have a discussion about Nancy's presentation, any possible communication to send forward to the county or the manager of planning? Any thoughts?
Can we approve the minutes first?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Do we adopt the May 26 minutes as presented? Any errors or omissions? See none. Mover and seconder, please.
I'll move.
Kim, seconder. Ray, call the vote, please.
Counselor Martin,
Yes,
Kim Smale,
Yes.
Sarah Emmons,
Yes.
Ray Price,
Yes.
Rob Brom,
Yes.
Counselor Jones.
Yes.
6-0, the motion is carried.
I guess I should ask if there's any disclosures of pecuniary interest in each thereof. I doubt it. Okay, now we'll try new business and any further discussion on Nancy's presentation. You know, there was some concerns about brought up by Kim about the lakeshore management, which I do agree with. I think there needs to be something in there about that, since the shoreline stretches the full length of Elgin County. I believe it was about 120 kilometers, if I'm not mistaken, something like that. Thoughts? Go ahead.
I think it should be included, for sure.
Sarah?
Agree 100%.
so do I,
Go ahead.
just so do I agree. It needs to be in there.
I think that's pretty much unanimous. That it's, I know it's a very sore subject in Elgin County right now, or has been for quite a while, but it's something that we do have a shoreline management plan. It just needs to be updated. And as far as I know, as long as it's not updated, the old one is still in existence and still is what is used today for management along the shoreline. So I think it's it is.
And one,
Go ahead.
just one thing, Grant, when that was brought to the county, they just tabled it and made no decision on it at all. So each of the conservation authorities had the right to do what they felt was right. But it needs to be a unified approach. I really think that we should be doing it together. And that was the whole point of having that study done and the proposed plan made. So it does concern me, because I do know I sit on Catfish, and Catfish originally adopted it and then backed out. So with a lot of pressure from the Lensla group. So I think the county needs to take a stand on it one way or another, rather than just leaving it tabled.
Yeah. Go ahead, Sarah.
Agree with Sally. I don't think it's right that the conservation authorities should have to stand alone on that, and that the county should be providing them with some support and backing. It's an issue that affects all of us, and we just have to look at neighboring municipalities to see the challenges that they're facing, and you know, that are coming our way even more so in the future than they are now.
Okay. Any other concerns with the natural heritage systems? Or it's nice to see we do have an increase of features. That was a positive sign. Sarah?
I think that you know, that I've thought of in terms of a policy direction is that there are generally ecologically established percentages of the landscape that, you know, like a 30% of the landscape remaining, you know, in natural features is kind of the bare minimum standard for keeping healthy ecosystems. So that should be, you know, maybe one of our goals. We're at 24.12% right now. We should be, you know, measuring this and setting a goal of getting it to 30%, or whatever the current research says. The last time I heard it was 30%. And in terms of kind of wetland coverage, it's at 2.64%, I believe. And, you know, maybe one of the goals that we could set would be to try to achieve whatever the historic landscape percentages were. I don't have those numbers in front of me, but the last numbers I saw were in a 2010 Ducks Unlimited survey as to what the historic levels were. And, you know, that's something to work towards.
For sure. And to continue on Sarah's points that maybe getting an idea of how much land or possibly where the land creation could come from would be another note to sort of introduce into that, as to, you know, here's our viable ecosystems, and then to continue on to those viable ecosystems, this is where we should be concentrating or thinking about putting the increase into to be the best benefit.
Yeah, I would agree with that 100%. Okay, any other comments? That's a great start for sure. Catherine, as far as wordsmithing a resolution,
I
they're really good.
I have a suggestion.
Sure.
Just simply that because Nancy is here and she is recording your feedback, just that feedback on the Elgin Natural Heritage System Study and Source Water Protection Plan as received from the Environmental Advisory Committee be included as part of the official plan review public consultation process.
Okay, that sounds good. Is that good for everybody? So I have a mover and a seconder, please. Sarah, seconder, Ray. Any further discussion? See none. Call the vote, please, Catherine.
Councillor Martin,
Yes.
Kim Smale,
Yes.
Sarah Emmons,
Yes.
Ray Price,
Yes.
Rob Brahm,
Yes.
Councillor Jones.
Yes,
6-0, the motion is carried.
thank you. And we'll move down to item 6, our pollinator gardens.
Yes, I'm actually going to be delivering that report today. Thank you. So the report that we have before you is just a very high level discussion about pollinator gardens, kind of continuing the discussion that the committee had been having about potential increases in naturalized areas on county property. So our presentation will start with a little bit of information about what a pollinator garden is at a very high level, then discussions of potential options, and then a discussion with the committee as to what our possible next steps would be. So our first, we start off with what is a pollinator garden, as I'm sure many of you are aware of the topic. A pollinator garden is one that attracts bees, butterflies, moths, hummingbirds, other beneficial creatures that transfer pollen from flower to flower, or in some cases within flowers themselves. Many pollinators have disappeared, and evidence is showing that pollinator populations are in decline. It's also shown that native pollinators are the best plant pollinators, as native plants and pollinators have evolved together to adapt to the local soil, climate, and growing season. So the recommendation would be to plant patches of pollinator plants, which make it easier for pollinators to forage. So what is needed? Pollinators need flowers that are rich in nectar and pollen and that are easily accessible. There are many different pollinator species, and it is important to provide a wide range of flowers. They require various places to shelter, to build nests in which to live, and to have safe places for eggs and larvae. Many wild bees, for example, make burrows in the soil, while others build nests in snags, dead or dying standing trees, or holes in dead wood. So pollinators will thrive better in an area that is sheltered from the wind, with a mix of sunshine and shade throughout the day. The County of Elgin already has a naturalized area at 450 Sunset Drive. I'm sure that many of you may have seen it when driving past our building. It's the area between the administration building and the county's provincial offenses administration building. And it was planted into a tall grass prairie in the spring of 2020, followed by seedlings being planted. The tall grass prairie has a mix of grasses and wildflowers that provide benefits for a range of wildlife, including pollinators, until the eventual succession to forest. The tall grass prairie can take a number of years to fully establish, though the site has already been used by monarchs. Here's just a photo of some close-ups of some of the plants and a monarch caterpillar. And then also here's a shot of the naturalized area at the county building. You can see the administration building and then the Heritage Center in the distance. And this is in between where the provincial offenses building is off to the left. So in the naturalized area, we reached out to the Conservation Authority and they provided us with a list of the tallgrass prairie species that were planted, which you can see on the slide here. And also our next slide includes the list of wildflowers that were planted in the naturalized area as well. And we definitely saw those this summer coming out. So the options that are available for the committee to discuss today are one, we could identify a location for a single pollinator garden at the County of Elgin. So we would need to consider the size and we would also need to consider if this is an entirely new garden, then we need to consider the possible increased maintenance. And then we also need to consider whether the existing garden locations at county facilities can be enhanced and whether we can plant pollinator patches in these existing gardens. And it might make it easier for pollinators to forage if there are multiple areas that they can go between. And then another option might be possibly a combination of 1 and 2. So a new garden and then more pollinator plants in existing gardens. Our options for planting are at county facilities. We have 3 long-term care homes, Elgin Manor, Beaubeer Villa, and Terrace Lodge that have gardens. Our libraries with a question mark, we'll discuss that in a minute. The County Administration Building, Heritage Center, and Provincial Offenses Building that are all around the 450 Sunset Drive area. And then the Elmer Emergency Medical Services Station and the Dutton Emergency Medical Services Station. So these are county facilities. Libraries have a question mark beside them because we have several locations for our libraries. Dutton, Shedden, Springfield, Stratforville, and Port Burwell may be good options just because of the space that's around them. Dutton and Shedden are landscaped by local horticultural societies volunteers, so their involvement and support would be required. But also because the county doesn't own these facilities and leases them from local municipal partners, if we were to decide we wanted to do a project at a library, we would need to discuss this with our local municipal partners and have their support. But if we do go down this route, there would be an opportunity for the libraries to offer programming at the library about the pollinator gardens to support the initiative. And then these are just some photos of some garden areas at our county facilities. Our Provincial Offenses Building, our main county building, Beaubeer Villa, and Terrace Lodge. So our next steps would be to decide and discuss, for the committee to discuss which option is preferred and to develop a list of pollinator plants, which I think we can do that by seeking support of the conservation authorities. It is also important to consider their survivability, so where we plant them and how much water they need and that sort of thing, and if the environment that we have to offer is conducive to the survival of those plants. We would need to establish a draft budget. So once we've discussed what options, we need to cost that out, consider the price of the plants and the maintenance costs. It is possible that the annual grass cutting and garden maintenance costs could be reduced, but more research needs to be done by our facilities team into researching these costs. And depending on the scope and size, our existing lawn and grass cutting and garden maintenance service could be used. So first, we will also need to determine a timeline and coordinate that with our county facilities team. And then this committee would need to make a recommendation to county council for support and funding. So that was in a nutshell. I may have gone through that a bit quickly. I do talk quickly. So if anyone has any questions, I will do my best to endeavor to answer them. And I think it would be great for the committee to have a discussion as to what they would like to recommend to staff to investigate.
Thanks, Catherine. I had this put on the agenda because I know Betsy had some questions. I think we're a little vague with our direction to Betsy as far as the design of what might happen. There was a concern with the one old maple tree, which the county has looked at, and it definitely needs to come down before it falls on the county building. So that will happen at some point. But Betsy needed a little more clarification of what we expected, and also staff have also had some questions raised about how this was going to be managed. So, Sarah, you had your hand up?
I have a few thoughts. One of the variables that we should also include in terms of site choice is the presence of native trees or the potential to plant native trees. In terms of Lepidoptera, so butterflies and moths, native trees are often the only thing that they can eat. And so especially oaks support the greatest variability of Lepidoptera. So that's kind of something that's not always thought of with pollinator gardens, is that they need to have kind of the trees as habitat as well. So if we have a site with existing native trees, which, you know, the Shedden Library is one of those, we have a really lovely tree planting there that's all native trees. That would be, you know, one of the factors. And also that we can kind of decide whether we want to let them be wild in the patches, or if they're in front of buildings, they can be maintained as a more formal looking garden. They don't have to be kind of wild. They can be maintained in a very similar way that we maintain our gardens now in terms of a simple perennial garden.
I know, Sally, I think you brought this forward originally. Any comments from your side?
And I think part of it was looking at the extensive amount of grass around the county building. And I certainly agree with the front lawns. I'd like to see some of our gardens even around the county building. But we do have trees, not oaks, but we do have some native trees there to the north. And I know, Grant, you and I walked out there with Betsy and Jeff and looked at a possible pollinator garden going in to the north of the building, but back, so it's not right out at the road, but back in. But I like the idea of trying to incorporate these into all of our homes and such. The more pollinators we can put in, I know many of our schools now have pollinator gardens, so I'd really like to see more and more put in different places. And maybe the one to the north of the building isn't the best suited, but it might do for certain plants. But I know the new naturalized area to the south of the county building was incredible this spring at summer. I was just amazed how beautiful it was, at least in my eyes. Not everyone agrees with me, but
Well, I agree with you.
so I, yeah, I'd like to see, you know, I'd like to see us do some pollinator gardens in a variety of places if we could.
I'm with
Is there-
Sarah on the idea of more manicured gardens for, you know, sometimes around the libraries and stuff. It does start to look a little bit more messy, and obviously there's a lot more cost involved when you're starting to maintain them. But was there any maintaining cost on the to the south of the building, of the county building? That's a large piece of property there, and I agree. It looked, to me, it looked great. I've collected seeds out of there, and I know it's if you get right in there, there's a lot more in there than what looks like from the road, for sure.
Yeah, no, that was just left as tall grass prairie. So eventually there will have to be a burn or a managed trimming of sumac or whatever might have to be eliminated. But to this point, that hasn't happened. So it's just I think the second year in, or the third year possibly, maybe the third year in now.
Third year, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does take, it will be a while before they do the burn. They usually, Kim would probably know the exact time, but I know it's several years in before they do a burn. And they would only do a burn if they don't want to have it reforested. But they have planted trees throughout it, so they probably won't do a burn,
Yeah.
Grant, in that area.
That would be correct. Yeah, they'll just go ahead and take out any invasive stuff that might pop up.
Is there any opportunity to expand that area south of the county building, or did they plant the whole area?
The whole area that was in between the museum and the POA court, pretty much the whole area that was, they were able to plant it. They planted as much as they could.
I know they've covered that area very well, and including with, they don't have the tall grass prairie in by the court building, but they have a lot of native trees in the court building that will eventually come. That's why I was looking at the north of the county building where we have a lot of just mown grass among those trees. So that one reason I thought it wouldn't hurt to have one there, but it may need some maintenance.
As far as watering goes, they're native species, so they probably, as long as they're in good soil, they should never need any watering. Just maybe a bit of thinning, I guess. I'm not a gardener. I haven't got the right term there, but to make them look a little more presentable. But you don't want it looking like a tall grass prairie, I don't think, so much. If you're trying to present some flowers and a nice area for staff to eat at or picnic table, whatever. So that was my.
Yeah, I know. Sorry, Grant. Our Cubs and Scouts beavers here did some naturalized gardens now, butterfly gardens, etc., out in front of our community hall in Sparta, and they're maintained, but they're lovely, and so they're just new. They just planted them last year, but it'd be great. And the number of butterflies we got, it was just incredible, and the kids have been just fascinated with all the Lepidoptera that have shown up.
As for the other sites, like, is there, like, obviously going into a little bit larger site would make it more beneficial, and I don't know which sites are small and which sites are large of the ones that you picked out, but obviously I think that going to a larger site is better. It's going to reduce the cost of the mowing that's already happening, so you're going to get, you know, more of a bang for your buck when you go into a larger area than a smaller area. And to set up for 3 or 4 small areas becomes difficult, to where one area is a lot easier to go into and to get like I say, it's just a more viable ecosystem right off the bat when you can get into a larger system. So
Yeah, but well, with the homes, I think we have a better opportunity because there are gardens around for the residents to participate in, and so I think there's a better option there than the libraries. Libraries, you're going to have to work in conjunction with the municipalities that actually own the buildings, and could be some challenges there, possibly. Sarah?
Certainly, you know, in my experience, my own native plant garden, it doesn't require any watering at all. All I have to do is thin it out as needed, because usually you just get some that are more aggressive, right? You don't want them taking over. That's really all that I've ever had to do with my gardens. The other thing is about funding, and there are certainly, you know, some NGO programs. If we want to partner with them, they have expressed interest in the past. Now, that was a while ago. I'd have to get back in touch with them, but they have expressed interest in working with us for pollinator gardens. I believe it was NCC is the parent, but it's very specific to small bits of pollinator garden in more urban areas.
You NGO and NCC, what are those acronyms?
Oh, sorry, non-governmental organization, NGO, and then NCC is the Nature Conservancy of Canada.
Okay, thank you.
And I did, sorry, Grant, I gave Brian Lima some material on naturalized areas, etc., that I got at a Roma conference, and they are willing to help as well, and they have some funding available. And so Brian Lima has that material. I gave it to him about a year and a half ago.
That's the exact program I'm talking about, Sally, for sure.
Yes, that's what yeah. And also I thought with the new Terrace Lodge, with that new courtyard in the center that we're developing, that's a perfect place for some pollinator gardens in there, because the people, you know, they're putting up bird feeders and things like that. It would just be logical, and I'm sure that the seniors would very much enjoy that area.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. As you have a great opportunity because nothing has been designated there yet as far as what they're going to plant. At least I don't think there has been anyway. So I think that this discussion should happen sooner than later.
Yes.
Okay. Any other thoughts?
I haven't done a lot of digging onto this, but I know that the carbon credits are going to be available certainly. So they're already there. It's just a matter of trying to maneuver ways to figure them out. And carbon credits are a way of being able to regroup some cash to be able to implement back into the system again. So they are available. I don't know how they work, but I know that they, for certain situations, they could possibly be used for this. And the other thing that I was thinking about is that for any new areas that are getting resodded, like they do have a hydro seeding with a pollinator mixture into it. So it's a matter of putting that in, and then you'll actually get in certain areas it might be viable to do that for the county to look at. But just 2 points.
Okay. Well, thanks, Rob.
Do you know whether or not is this limited to county facilities? Or is it gonna be?
For
What?
this committee, I think it has to be. We really don't have any jurisdiction outside county facilities.
Yeah.
And it'd be a recommendation to county to push the county to do something like this.
So the reason I mentioned that was, the Conservation Authority has a Path of Honor project at the Ontario Police College. And I don't know whether they would be interested in partnering with either the Conservation Authority or the county to put a pollinator garden out there. They've got all kinds of room out there. All they do is cut grass all over the place.
They do, absolutely.
That's a perfect suggestion. And Kim, I'll bring that up to Catfish at least.
Because
that
they-
can.
Okay.
They just increased their property by, I think, another 10 acres about 4 years ago. And they got that whole section to the south that's got a few trees into it, but there is a lot of property that they are cutting.
Yep.
And they've got the fence up there, so that's really nothing can move into the area. But I don't understand why they're cutting so much grass there. But anyway, it's
Sarah?
Oh, just a correction on my previous point. I just looked it up. It's Carolinian Canada, and it's the Go Wild, Grow Wild.
Grow Wild, yeah.
Yes, yeah.
And they also have the Pawpaw Parade, so we could maybe get our hands on some pawpaws too.
I got lots.
So do I. I'm happy to provide any pawpaws you need.
I have two, and they don't grow very fast, do they?
No, they don't.
No.
I'm not worried about getting fruit off mine, that's for sure.
Okay.
Ours have been fruiting for years, so I do have some big ones.
So, Catherine, can you encapsulate something into a resolution to county council that's been discussed? Since
So
a lot's discussed.
I think that we still have another step as a committee. I think this was to gather a bit of feedback from the committee as to the direction that they want to take, but we need to, I think, have some more information first. So my thought would be that a resolution could be that more information be provided regarding the cost, associated maintenance, and viability of a standalone pollinator garden at the county administration building, as well as incorporating pollinator plants into county-owned facilities, to be presented to the committee for further discussion. And also in there, I should include the exploration of funding partnerships, because I think before the recommendation to county council, the committee needs to know what the costs, the viability, and the maintenance are of those options. But as staff, we just wanted to know which of those options the committee wanted. And it looks as if, you could tell me if I'm wrong, but that the committee is wanting to look at both the possibility of a standalone area at the north of the county building, as well as incorporating pollinator-friendly plants into existing manicured gardens at county-owned facilities.
I think you got it nailed on the head there.
So that can be something that as staff, now that we have a little bit more direction, then we can get in contact with the Conservation Authority, our facilities, and look into the viability of that. And then we can bring that back to the committee, possibly at a meeting in January.
Sure. Sounds good.
Mhm.
Okay, so just a resolution to send back to staff for further research. Is that close enough? Yep. And mover and seconder, please. Rob, seconder. Tim's nodding his head. Either he's falling asleep, one or the other.
There,
All in favor? Call the vote, please, Catherine.
Councillor Martin,
Yes.
Kim Smale,
yes.
Sarah Emmons,
Yes.
Ray Price,
Yes.
Rob Brom,
Yes.
Councillor Jones.
Yes.
6-0, the motion is carried.
Okay. Great, great discussion. Next item is correspondence. We have none. So item 8's date for the next meeting, and so we're kind of looking at January.
I was thinking that we should maybe meet earlier in January, only because if this is a funding request, if a funding request goes to the Budget Committee and County Council, then that will need to happen early in the year. So I know we're used to meeting towards the end of the month, but I wonder if possibly the 5th if the 5th, or would that work at all?
Just wondering, is that going to give Brian and his staff time to research this, or do we need to give them another week because there's going to be Christmas and stuff in there to mess things up?
That's true. We could meet on the 12th.
Yeah.
We don't have to meet on a Wednesday. It's just that seems to be the best day for everyone.
Yeah. So Wednesday the 12th work for everybody right now?
Fine with me. It's very important. I think we do get, if we're going to request anything, we do need to let Budget Committee even give a heads up that we're coming with possibly a request. I know when you and I met with Betsy, etc., they were thinking at that time, I think about, oh no, maybe this is a different one. Sorry. We're establishing a tall grass prairie in Central Elgin again. And that's about $2,000 is what Betsy quoted us at the time.
Yeah, I didn't hear any numbers for well, she didn't really know because we're too big on what we asked her to do. So she didn't really put a number on it.
Yep.
Okay. So we'll go for the 12th at 10:30. Does that work for everybody, or earlier, later? I know, Sally, you had challenges with time.
It was Sarah. It was
Oh,
Sarah that had the challenge with the
It's
time.
just
And
that.
I said I was happy with her leaving it till 10:30.
At 10 o'clock is fine for me next time. I just had a previous appointment booked this time. So
Well, let's go with 10 o'clock and if that works for everybody. Okay.
Grant, one possibility, should we give the Budget Committee just a heads up that we might want, even say $5,000 set aside for the Environmental Committee for a projects? I mean, it's a fairly minor amount of money is in the county budget, but I just don't know if they would appreciate that fact, and that we could just recommend that the Environmental Committee at least be given $5,000 for projects in 2022. It would at least give us something to work with for sure, and it wouldn't come as a surprise.
Yeah, probably wouldn't be a bad thing. I know the budget this year is going to be a challenge. So, yeah, the more notice they got, the better. Maybe we don't get the axe.
I could
Then
suggest,
I'd be happy to make. Yeah, go ahead, Catherine.
I could suggest that the motion
you're-
be, oh, am I muted? Can you hear me?
You were.
Oh, okay. All right, good. I would suggest that the motion be that correspondence be sent to the budget committee for inclusion on their next agenda with the request.
Yeah, that sounds good. All right.
Would there be a problem going for more, like 10 grand?
Knowing that how challenging the budget sounds like it's going to be, I would say we don't want to be greedy. Maybe baby steps might be the best approach right now until we.
I don't think we're being greedy. I think that, you know, $5,000 is not a lot of money these days, and especially when we're talking the budget. So, you know, to me, I always go a little, everybody always goes a little heavy, and if it comes down a little bit, okay. But, you know, if you never ask, and there's other partners that we could go into too, like, you know, we could try the Green Lane Fund, right? There's another good avenue of, I'm sure they would get involved into it. So there's other avenues that we could get. So, you know, maybe if we could get some money, we could really pull off some nice things this year. So
I would
thought.
say also, let's look into that Carolinian Canada partnerships, right? I think you always have a lot better chance of getting money when you show that you're seeking outside funding as well.
The Carolinian Canada is on a really tight budget. I don't think they have a whole lot to work with. And I know the programs that you're talking to, I could make a call to them, and a quick call, and just see if what sort of proposal they could make.
I've been in contact with them since last year. So
oh yeah,
they did
okay.
express an interest in working with us.
No, they're good people for sure.
Okay.
But
Well,
how much funding?
well, if you want to throw $10,000 and see if they say, Sal, you're on that committee still, right?
No, I'm not on the budget committee.
Yeah. Okay.
No, all I'm saying is I think it's important that we give them a heads up rather than drop it on them after that we will be seeking funding. And I mean, I don't object to the 10,000, that's fine. But at least we need something. So we've got something to work with. So we're not waiting for another year to get a project done.
Yeah. Okay. Okay with that, Catherine? Up to 10,000? Okay. There's nothing else. We've set our meeting, so adjournment. Thanks, everybody. I don't think we need a motion to adjourn.
We should do one.
Okay. Motion to adjourn. Ray,
So moved.
all in favor?
Aye.
Councillor Martin,
Yes.
Kim Smale,
Yes.
Sarah Emmons,
Yes.
Ray Price,
Yes.
Rob Rom,
Yes.
Councillor Jones.
Yes.
6-0, the motion is carried.
I hope all of you have a very Merry
Yes.
Christmas, because we probably won't see you between now and then.